So I'm building a new gaming PC, and this is my first build for around 15 years. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Last time I built a PC, it was a Pentium 4, I believe. Back then, Nvidia wasn't really a big name, and the hyperthreading technology was just barely getting started. I believe Pentium 4 was actually the first generation of hyperthreading. Still single core though. Single core hyperthreading was a big deal back then. But yeah, this time around I'm gonna build an all AMD system. I'm gonna stick with Ryzen. I bought the Ryzen 5 right here. It's a 2600X. I think this is the best value you can get right now, CPU wise. 6 cores, 3.6 gigahertz. And of course it does have hyperthreading as well, even though AMD call it something else. I'm not quite sure what they call it. So we got 12 threads as well. For that, I'm gonna use this ASRock Mini ITX motherboard. It's a B450 chipset. And the reason why I'm going for Mini ITX is because of the thing right behind me right there, which is the Razer Core X that I have hooked up to my MacBook Pro. You can barely see behind me. And, you know, I really wanted to do some kind of gaming. This is a Vega 64 card in that eGPU. Try to install Boot Camp on my MacBook Pro. It can be done with some third-party drivers, get it working with an external GPU, but I just found that the MacBook Pro's fan would just crank up to maximum all the time, almost no matter what I did. I was kind of concerning about heat issues. It's MacBook Pro 2018. It's known to overheat, so that's why I went in this direction instead for all my gaming needs. I have not played PC games for many years. Back then, Counter-Strike was a different Counter-Strike than it is right now. But yeah, kind of interesting to get back into PC gaming. Haven't really turned on any of my consoles for longest period of time. I have an Xbox One X, I have PS4 Pro, I have a Nintendo Switch, Wii U, I got the handheld gaming as well, PS Vita and 3DS, 3DX XL from Nintendo, but I have not really played any console gaming for the longest period of time. And lately I've just kind of missed first-person shooters, you know, using a standard mouse and keyboard gesture or as an input device. And that's the reasoning for building my little gaming PC. I want something as small as my Razer Core X that I can just install Windows and do some gaming and maybe some productivity in the future. But anyways, that's the reasoning for getting into Mini ITX, and why I bought the ASRock was because it's the only one, I believe, with the B45 chipset, and also has a USB Type-C connectivity, and of course Wi-Fi and LAN and everything else that you need to connect to the internet. I'm going for best value in this build, at least that's what I'm trying to do. And for graphics card, I'm going for Vega 56. This is, I think, the best value you can get right now in terms of price versus frames per second. This is a, you can see here, PowerColor Red Dragon Vega 56 card. It's latest generation Vega architecture or Vega design. It got a lot smaller PCB than earlier Vega cards, so it's a bit smaller in terms of the actual circuit board, but the cooling solution is pretty much the same as other Vega 64 and 56 cards, you know, with 3-fan design, third-party cards, so it should stay cool. Hopefully it stay cool in a small ITX case with 3 built-in fans, and it also should be relatively quiet, and of course as efficient as a Vega 56 card can be. For all this, I'm gonna crank into my little Shacoon Mini ITX case here. This is the case I could find that supported the longest graphics card, 31.5 centimeters. The PowerColor Vega 56 card I just showed you, is 30.5 centimeters, so that should leave me around 1 centimeters of clearance to install that card. So I'm hoping it can barely fit in there, even though it seems pretty impossible because it's very narrow in height, not so high in this case. So I'm kind of curious to see how well it will fit in that card actually. So yeah, of course I'm gonna go all SSD. I bought an Intel, one of the newest generation of the 1660p, I believe, 2 terabyte SSD. It's kind of a slower SSD standard, but it got a big cache, so it should load pretty fast. I went with Kingston HyperX memory, Fury HyperX memory. Those was the best value I could get, 30 for 200 megahertz. And of course Corsair, which is, I believe, one of the biggest PSU manufacturers these days. Back when I built my PC last time, Corsair was really known for memory only. I don't believe they made other stuff back then. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a 650 watts power supply. I'm kind of limited of what I can actually fit within this case. I believe it's only up to 14.5 centimeters in depth. So I went with one of the smaller power supplies from Corsair, 650 watts. And should be plenty to run this system. Let's just get into the actual building of this machine and let's see how well it will actually perform. I'm kind of curious to see if I'm running into overheating and stuff like that. And if you're into unboxing videos, I will do or have done unboxing videos of all of the gear I'm gonna put in my little mini ITX gaming PC. So you can check out my channel if you want to see some of those videos. If they're not live yet, they will come eventually in the future. I try to upload at least 2 videos every week. And of course in the future, I will try also to get this PC to run as quiet and as efficient as possible. I'm gonna include or install a water cooler. I'm gonna install some higher quality Noctua fans in this build as well. And I'm gonna try to silence the power supply as well, because I think it's a little on the noisier side. But that's up for a video in the future. In this video, I'm just gonna build this system and run some benchmarks and share with you the result and the experience of this build. So let's get into it. First off, let's grab some tools here. I'm gonna use the iFixit tool. I really like this tool. You can use the lid as a screw holder. And of course it comes with this anti-static wrist strap. So just put this around your wrist. Elastic band here. And of course you connect the other end to the ground. So yeah, let's remove the tools. And then let's bring in the case right here. Let's remove all the sides. In this particular case you can remove not only the top side, but left, right side and bottom as well. So should get fairly easy to working on this case here. After removing all the side and the front of the case as well, let's install the power supply, because this is the first thing you should install in this case. I don't think you can get it in actually when everything else is connected. So let's just put it on the bracket right here and screw all the 4 screws in the bracket itself, and then attach the bracket to the case itself. Just like you can see here, attach the 4 screws and mount the power supply itself. This is one of the reasons why I bought this case. Like I said, the power supply is front mounted and should be able to take up less room inside the case, and hopefully this means we can have the big graphics card installed that almost takes all up the entire length of the case. And of course let's just connect power while we're here, because this has a power extender. So you connect the power supply to one end, and this extender cable will go through the back, where you actually connect the power to the computer itself. Next off, let's just mount the back plate. There's always something that's easy to forget. So take the back plate and just squeeze it in the back here for all the I/O connectivity of the motherboard. And speaking of the motherboard, that's the next thing we're gonna install or make ready to install. First off, let's just put in the CPU and the CPU cooler. To be able to do this, we need to unscrew these plastic mounts, because I'm gonna try out the Wrath Stealth cooler that came included with the CPU and see how well that actually cools and noise level and so on. And then afterwards we can always install another cooler, but this should just get us started. And let's just put the Wrath Stealth Cooler on here. There's 4 screws you need to tighten. Of course, it's a good thing to cross-tighten these screws. So tighten them across each other and just tighten them until they are very firm. And yeah, of course, remember to plug in the fan and plug it into the CPU header on the motherboard, not those case fan header on the motherboard. Plug it into the CPU like you can see right here. Next off, let's install the memory, the Fury HyperX. You just need to take note of the notch on the memory sticks. They actually fit in the notch on the motherboard. And then you just squeeze them in. You need to put a little force on there, a little more force than you would probably like, but click them in place. And do the same, of course, with both the RAM models. It doesn't really matter which direction or which one goes in where. Just make sure that they both are in and they are clicked in place like this. Next off, installing the SSD. It goes in on the bottom of the motherboard. Just put it in like so, and you need 1 screw to screw it in place. The SSD does not come with a screw, so I'm gonna use the screw that came with the motherboard that is made for mounting the SSD. Just tighten it enough, don't over tighten this screw here. Now it's time to actually install the motherboard in the case. Make sure you have the right standoffs mounted to the case. In my case, on my instance, they already came installed. There's 5 screws on the motherboard and they fit right well or perfectly with those standoffs on the motherboard there. So yeah, align it with the backplate. Make sure that those little tabs on the backplate actually goes on top of the plugs on the back side of your motherboard. It can be a little tricky actually to get it in there, but you can see it does fit very well. And next up, just of course mount the screws. Like I said, you need 4 screws to attach this motherboard. You can see the screw holes right there. I'm gonna use the ones that came with the case. And just tighten it. Don't tighten it too much in the beginning. Just put the screws in there and then tighten it afterwards when all the 4 screws are in. Now to one of the trickier parts, cable management. Actually, to get all these cables not only attached and managed within the case is kind of hard when you have such a tiny case to work on. So yeah, this will take some time. So let's just skip it a little bit. I have attached all the cables now, but not managed them very well. I will do that later. But now let's just try and get that graphics card in there. As you can see, it is a very tight fit. And actually, I cannot get it in there no matter how I try, what angle I try it at. And that resulted me to actually drill out that support bar you can see in the bottom of the screen. I really need to get that out to be able to get the graphics card in there. The graphics card is way too tall for this little case. So yeah, let's try that and see how well that actually goes. Just find the right drill here and let's drill out those nits that actually hold the frame into the case, so we can actually remove that one bar there and hopefully that way get the graphics card installed. I'm just very careful here not to drill through. I don't want to make the hole bigger than it is. Hopefully I can put a screw in afterwards. So I'm just going to drill little by little and just push out all the nits right there, and I'm going to do it all the way throughout the bar right there. So now I have removed the bar right there. So let's just try out again and see if we can fit the graphics card in there. I knew it would be a tight fit, so I was kind of expecting having to do some modification to the case. But you can see here, if I actually squeeze in the front end first within the case, I can just get the back side in and actually get the graphics card mounted. And finally you can see here the graphics card is installed. Looks like it's almost made for this case. Barely fits in there, but it does fit. Next step is of course to mount power to the graphics card. This graphics card needs one 8-pin and one 6-pin connector. So let's just mount those and let's actually try and turn on the system afterwards and see if this will actually turn on. That's always one of the most nerve-wracking moments of any build. It's actually the part where you press power button and nothing comes on the screen. It always takes a few seconds to actually turn on. But you can see here I'm struggling a little bit getting in those connectors, but after some time, of course, it is possible. So now the PC is officially built. Of course, I need to do a lot of cable management still, but everything is connected. So let's just hook it up and press the power button. Okay, let's see here. The CPU fan is spinning. That's a good sign. As well as the fan on the GPU side here. Now let's go into BIOS and have a closer look. Sorry for the little shaky video. I'm using a handheld recording. But you can see here dual channel memory, and it's set to 2193, which is good, I think. It's a 3200 megahertz RAM modules, but I think its native speed of this CPU and chipset is 2133. I was a little concerned that it would work at all, because I've heard that the Ryzen CPU should be a little sensitive with memory. But yeah, let's just go quickly through the BIOS right here. Hardware monitor. You can see it is pretty cool, the CPU, about 45 degrees. Of course, just idling, doing nothing really. Security settings and so on. But let's go into the boot screen here and let's actually set it up to boot from USB. I've already made a USB 10 USB boot device, and you can see here it's booting into Windows right now. I'm just gonna go quickly through all the setting process. Pretty boring stuff, so we'll just speed up the video and get back when we're actually inside the machine or inside Windows. Now Windows is installed, and let's go through this setup process quickly. Of course, choosing language and choose the keyboard layout. I live in Denmark and I use Danish layout, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to log into Wi-Fi, and let's just speed through the rest of the setup process and get right into the Windows desktop. And we are set up. At least this is the first boot, so of course I need to install drivers and everything. Logitech just popped up asking me to install Logitech Options software, and of course I need to install chipset drivers, graphics drivers, and so on and so on. But first off, I always go into the Microsoft Update and actually just installing all the latest drivers and updates from Microsoft in there. And once it's done, rebooted and everything, I'm gonna install the latest drivers from the chipset manufacturers, like in this case, of course, AMD, but also Intel for the Wi-Fi and so on. But of course, go into the ASRock website and go into the download section and download drivers for your specific motherboard. But in terms of graphics card and chipsets, I always prefer to go into the original manufacturer like Intel or in this case AMD, because it's not always 100% certain that ASRock has the latest drivers actually installed or on their website. So now all drivers are installed. Let's just have a closer look at the hardware. Of course, you can see here the CPU is the Ryzen 5 2600X. The memory is, of course, 16 GB DDR4, and it's running at cache latency 18, 20, 20, 36, which is pretty good. Not amazingly, but considering what I'm paid for this RAM, I'm very happy. The memory module is actually made from Micron, or of Micron technology, which is some of my preferred memory manufacturers. And you can see, of course, here the AMD Radeon RX Vega graphics card from PowerColor. Let's get to the benchmarking part. Let's start out with Cinebench. This is Cinebench 20 or 2.0. And you can see here the CPU score. This is the multi-core score, is 2882 CB, which is pretty good from a 6-core 12-thread CPU. Next off, let's have a look at the Geekbench score. You can see here, single core score is 4757, and the multi-core score is 22,764. Let's have a look at the OpenGL score. I'm getting 197,049. Pretty decent, I think, for a Vega 56 card. Next off, 3D Mark score here, times by benchmark, 6,112. Gears of War 4 here, running at 4K. You can see in ultra settings, and I'm getting around 39 frames per second on average, which is actually pretty good. It is playable, but of course you can always lower the quality a little bit. In 4K, I think it's a little high for a Radeon Vega 56, but that's the monitor I have right now. Unigine Heaven Benchmark 4.0. You can see I'm getting average frames per second of 22.8. This is at 4K resolutions and all the settings set to maximum or ultra or extreme. So yeah, pretty decent results, I think. Let's try a few games here. First off, CSGO. You can see my settings right here. Of course, running in 4K resolution. You can see here actually plays out very well. Everything set to high. Let's just have a look at the actual frame rate. I'm getting average of at 122 frames, which is pretty good. Okay, again in 4K resolution. Let's try out some Apex Legend. 4K resolution, everything set to high. Let's just have a look at some gameplay here. It does play fairly smooth. Of course, I do not plan to game exclusively in 4K. That's just the screen I have right now that I use for all of my productivity. I plan to get a decent 144 Hz refresh rate Quad HD monitor in the future. I'm gonna make a video about that later on. But yeah, you can see here, actually runs pretty smooth. Playing 4K at high settings, Apex Legend. Let's just have a look at the frame rate count. I can see an average of 49 FPS. Still pretty decent, considering it's 4K and high settings. Here you can see the results of Overwatch. I'm actually running close to 60 FPS steady frames per second as an average. And let's have a look at Battlefield as well. Also close to around the 60 FPS average and still in 4K and high settings. So yeah, pretty impressed by that actually. You can see here at the wattage that the total system use under load, this is both under maximum CPU and GPU load, is drawing around the 300 watts for the entire machine. That's of course excluding the monitor. But yeah, I don't think that's actually that bad. Not that power hungry, the GPU, as I was fearing. You know, with the 650 watt of PSU, should be more than plenty to run this system. Disk speed test, not that bad at all. Read speed around 1600 megabyte and write speed about 1900 megabyte. That is pretty darn good. And back to the frame, I removed to get room for the graphics card. I found actually that the fan screws, like this one here, is the perfect size to fit in those holes for that part of the chassis I drilled out, as you can see right here. So fits perfectly and it's very flushed with the case, so I can actually get the side panels on. I've done a little bit of cable management, as you can see here. So I'm gonna do more on this build in upcoming videos. This is just part 1, building the system and doing some benchmark. Next part, I'm actually gonna install a water cooler, and I'm gonna install Noctua fans, not only in the water cooler or as exhaust fan, but also in the power supply. So stay tuned for that video, part 2 coming in the near future. But that's pretty much it for this video. Until next time, thank you for watching.